everybody.
Hello.
Thanks for joining. Today we have Victoria, Heather, and myself, Melody, for our discussion for 5012 of Rules by Cynthia Lord. So getting started, what were your overall impressions of the book?
I think for me, it was a different perspective on a book. I've never seen one that's written from a sibling's or a family member's point of view. So it was nice to see a different version of a look at somebody that has autism.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I think also for the age group that it was written for, it was really accessible. Like it wasn't too difficult to read, and it wouldn't be too difficult for middle schoolers to read. But they were still able to access a lot of like heavy emotional content, which I think was important for the whole book as well.
I absolutely totally agree with both of you ladies. I love this book. I love reading this book and seeing all like the interesting points of view that Cynthia had, and also like you guys were saying, at the age level that it's at, it really can reach a lot of people. So I totally agree. This is one of the questions that our professor wrote down. How does this pertain to you in your future of being an educator or in education?
So for me, I am a childhood level educator, so I think it's a little above what my grade level would be. But I think it's really important for teachers to read, because we all, even in a general ed classroom, deal with students that have some disabilities. So I think it's a good book for everybody to read. But if I was teaching an upper level course like middle school or high school, I definitely think it would be a good thing to add in, to have good conversations about the challenges of having students like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I'm adolescent, and I could see probably more so middle school, but also high school, because I read it and enjoyed it as an adult as well. But yeah, definitely even just adding it into the curriculum, because I think it's even though it's a good story, but it's also well written. And there's a good plot structure, and I mean, I think it won. Yeah, it looks like it won like 2 different awards and stuff. So it definitely holds up on its own. So I would definitely add it in.
I totally agree. I could see myself, like reading it through with my class, especially because I'm also an adolescent with you, Victoria. Even at all grade levels, especially because it touches on like bullying, especially too, in general. So it's a really great subject to bring up, but also from, special education point of view and from the family member's point of view. So I agree. What are some of your personal connections? I know we spoke on a little bit from like your education backgrounds, but any like personal backgrounds that you have, or maybe even education backgrounds you can tie in?
Personally, I don't have a lot. I don't have any family members that have disabilities like that, but we have 2 twin boys in our school that are both autistic, and they have an older sister and a younger sister. And it really gave me a different view of looking at how they deal with it and thinking about what they deal with on a daily basis versus just what we deal with at school with them.
For sure.
Yeah, I personally, I don't have any family members either that have disabilities like that, but I have worked with students in the past with autism. Specifically, I remember one kid, he was in 4th grade, extremely smart, and he was in the gen ed classroom, and I just remember just some of the things that didn't connected for me, but it didn't connect for him. I remember when he was doing a math assignment, and he came up with this. He gave an answer that wasn't even on the answer key, but it was correct. I looked it up for him. He insisted that it was correct. And I went to give him a high five. He's like, "Why are you holding your hand up at me?" I don't know. It's just a good reminder that, just sometimes it's just like our norms are not necessarily their norms. And, sometimes he struggled with social cues and stuff like that. So I have had some experience with it, but not in my family, really.
Those are awesome examples. I did have my one family member, Jossie. She has since passed away. She did not have autism. She had basically like learning, or where her education was at was maybe like 4 or 5. She had Down syndrome, but such a sweetheart. And it kind of reminded me necessarily like what my uncle would have gone through watching her and being a single dad. And he had 4 older kids as well. And like, so it was nice to see maybe some of the things that they maybe internally went through or my uncle went through. And then as far as like school goes, being in special education right now and being a case manager, I have lots of kiddos who go through this, and it's really important to see it from everyone's point of view, especially family members who join the CSE meetings, and really making those connections of what they might be going through to have an extra level of empathy and compassion when they are standing up for, advocating for the rights of the family member with special needs or disabilities. So and then I think we touched on this a little bit too, but do you see yourself using this book? We said a little bit, Victoria, you're saying in class you could see yourself too.
Yeah, I think it would be a great one to, I think you mentioned like reading together as a class. That would be a great one to do. And I think it's also one that you could even have like students split up and either work in partners or in like groups of 4 to read it out loud together. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they could get a lot out of it themselves too, even without the teacher having to read it to them, which I think is really cool.
Mm-hmm. And Heather, you were saying too, I think we discussed a little bit too, you said that it could reach like all levels for you.
Yeah, I think, oh, sorry, go ahead. Go.
I think like in childhood, they wouldn't be reading it on their own, but I think that there's a lot of lessons in it, especially because it talks not just about how you try to fit in with your family, but how you try to fit in with your peer group. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important lesson at any grade level.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. Like we mentioned before, like reading it loud, going through it together, but could also prompt like fun 1-pagers. I know that I've never done 1-pagers before, actually, like being a part of this class, and this kind of inspired me, especially from like thinking of Catherine, how artistic she was, like maybe a 1-pager for this book and what we learn. And then before I round everything up here, do you have a favorite moment from the book that you read that was funny or that you really liked?
The one that I liked the most and kind of felt the most real was right at the end when they were at the dance and she gets mad at her dad and she says, I have to matter too. And I think that that's really an important lesson for families, because sometimes, because the autistic sibling has to take up a lot of the time with appointments and needs, that we still have to make sure that the other siblings in the family are still getting attention and feel cared for and appreciated.
Definitely.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. I also really liked when Catherine bought Jason the guitar for his birthday. I thought that was really sweet, and she spent like all her money on it, and it was just it was a really great gesture. And I know earlier in the book she was hoping that Jason's mom would buy him a guitar, and she didn't. So it was really thoughtful, and it was just I thought it was really sweet.
No, those are really great moments too. I liked the when she had just had enough, like Catherine was really frustrated and she was crying in her room, and like David comes in, he's like, you fix it, and it's completely broken in half. She throws it across the room and says, no, I can't fix it. And then he's just crying, trying to like talk to her like he normally does, and just saying all the rules. If something goes in the garbage, if something is trash, it's put in the garbage. He's crying and she just breaks down and like holds him. Like that's such a real moment too. And I think Cynthia did a great job in capturing lots of, I think both of you have even mentioned like capturing like emotions, like real emotions from the book. And then I had one little tidbit too. What do we think of Ryan? Do we think of him as just simply, because there's lots of kids I feel like that we come across day to day who just simply don't know about the special needs world, or kids with disabilities or autism. Do we think that there's a saving grace for Ryan, or do we feel like he's just more so being mean, or like what are our thoughts?
I think we didn't really get to see, I don't think she developed his character quite enough to see, what was kind of really going on in the background for him. Mm-hmm. I think for how he was set up in the book, I think it was definitely between him and Christy to kind of show like societal norms that Catherine was kind of trying to operate in, and how some people on the outside, if they don't have a sibling or someone close to them with autism or another disability, they just might not understand.
Yeah.
And then as a result, make fun of that or whatever. But I think if she developed his character more, maybe there was I don't want to assume like he was completely bad, but I think he definitely just kind of came from a place of not understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I think that he came across as very rude, but I don't know if it was more of a not knowing how to act around them versus, or trying to seem like the tough guy versus, trying to truly be rude.
I completely agree, and I'm the type of person who just thinks the best of everybody and wants the best of everybody. And my thoughts for him, because at first you hear how mean he is, and then my first thought is yeah, poor David, how could this kid? But then I had to stop myself and be no, maybe he doesn't know, or maybe it just comes from a place where he just doesn't know enough, and maybe Catherine can help him and becoming friends with her new next door neighbor, and she can be hey, this is how things are, this is how he doesn't understand this way, and maybe give him another chance. So I was on the same level as you guys as far as that stands. Well, thank you again so much for meeting with me, ladies, and I super appreciate you, and this has been our talk.